Do you want to learn how to memorize your accordion bass buttons? In this video, I'm going to share with you some tips and techniques that I use to help me memorize these things. And if by the end of this video, you still don't have these things memorized, I guarantee you will with this. Stay tuned. How to memorize your accordion bass buttons. This isn't always straightforward. It's a little bit tricky and there's a lot to go over and unpack. So if you want to follow along, you can go to squeezingthanks.com, download this accordion chord chart, and this will kind of give you a good breakdown of the bass. And I'm going to also throw it on screen right now, and that'll be a helpful tool for you to follow along. I just want to go over the articulation real quick. On the chart, as it goes up, it goes down on the bass, and as it goes down on the chart, it goes up on the bass. It's a little bit of a flip, but if you were to take your hand right now and just put it over the chart, you can see as your hand moves away as it goes up the chart, it's going away from your head articulated on the accordion. As you bring your hand closer towards the bottom of the chart, you're bringing it closer to your head, to your perspective. This is basically just a top-down view, and for me, that seems to make the most sense. I've shared this with a lot of people when I was developing it, and that seems to make the most sense. Hey, Editing Denny here. I realized that I didn't mention not all accordions are going to have 120 bass buttons. I'm going to go over all 120 in this video, but some might be a 48, some might be a 72, some might be a 96. Some might not have the diminished row, and even on some accordions, it doesn't even have the 7th row. So they come in all sorts of shapes and sizes, but if we go over the 120, we'll cover all our bases. You're going to want to know this stuff. Even if you consider moving up, you'll see what your options are. So let's dive back into the edit. We're going to focus mainly on 2 rows, and the reason I say that is because there is a root row. That's this second row from the bellows. This is the root or the fundamental row. That's giving you each individual notes, and there's 20 different ones all the way up and down. They do repeat, so it is a little bit easier. This other row right here is the counterbass row. And again, another 20 notes you have to memorize. The thing that makes it easy though is that all of the other notes from this row here, the third one in from the bellows, we have the major, the minor, the 7th, and then the diminished. So right there, you already have 80 buttons memorized. If all you need to know is major, minor, 7, diminished, those are going to be defined by the root. So if we have the C, and then we have the one below it, the one right next to it is the major. So that's the C major. If we go this way up to the G, we have G major. So all the way up and down the accordion, if you can just memorize what the root row is, you're going to remember all of these individual defined chords under that respective root note. So again, we have the C major, we have the C minor, we have the C7, and the C diminished. So as long as we have these 4 rows memorized, major, minor, 7, diminished, we have 80 buttons already memorized, leaving us with 40 buttons that we have to memorize. It sounds like a big task, but if we break it down, so we're going to start with memorizing 3, then we're going to memorize 7, that'll expand into 20, and then 20 to 40. So if we break it down like that, that might be a little bit easier for you to follow along. If you guys want to grab a sheet of paper and pen, I would highly recommend you do this. Any type of teacher is going to tell you if you write stuff down, you're going to commit it to memory, and that's what we want to do. So let's start with the C right here. C is in the middle, and it's usually marked with a dot or a dimple, so we'll put that right there. And starting with the first 3, we have to memorize the sequence of G, C, F. So we'll do G, C, and F. The next thing we have to memorize is the next 4, and that'll get us to the 7 that we need to know for the first 7, the sequence of 7. All we have to memorize is bead. So just like a bracelet, you put beads on. Beads are going to be encompassing this G, C, and F. So we have B, E, A, D, and then going this way, bead again, but backwards, D, A, E, B. So we have bead, G, C, F, bead. and it basically repeats itself. So if we go this way now, we have G, C, F, and then again over here, G, C, F. Now we have to memorize the dimple buttons. This is going to be your compass, and not all accordions are going to have this, and if your accordion doesn't have this, I would highly recommend that you do mark your bass buttons accordingly. This will make everything just a little bit easier. Most accordions will have the C marked, they'll have right over here the E marked, and then over here we'll go, so you'll see a pattern too. So we have 1, 2, 3, 4, and then this way we go 1, 2, 3, 4. Going beyond that, not all accordions have this marked, so I will link a video in the description on how to mark your bass buttons. It's a little tutorial on how you can use a drill and Dremel it out, or if you don't want to use a drill, you can use some glue and glue these rhinestones on. But this is going to be your compass, and it's really going to help. So we're going to go 4 more this way. We're following the pattern of 4, and 4 this way. So we have that so far. We're going to get back to this. This is not all of them. Right now we have 17 laid out. There's 20 on a 120 bass. We're going to teach you guys how to do this on a 120 bass. There isn't just 7 letters. There's actually 12. There's 12 notes in a chromatic scale. Right now we're only showing 7 of them. There's sharps and flats. And as we go up the accordion or down the accordion, it becomes sharp or flat. If we go in this direction, this is up, this direction is down. We have to now signify the sharps and flats. So if we're going down, as I mentioned, we're going in the flat direction, and if we're going up, we're going in the sharp direction. So the first sequence, the G, C, F, it's encompassed by 2 beads, and once we get to the end of this right here and right here, we'll see that it repeats. So all we have to do is memorize bead, G, C, F, and that's our pattern. And once we go in this direction, we're getting into sharps. So these are now sharps. And as we go just a little bit forward, G, C, F, we're going to have another bead. So D, A. But you'll notice that after this indentation right here, there's only 2 left. So that is the D and the A, and these are both sharp as well. So we got a little bit more than half memorized already. Now we have to go in this direction. After this B, E, A, D, G, C, F, after this F right here, we have another bead, G, C, F. This is now flat, and if we go in this direction, we're just making all of these flat, and then we get to this G. I want you to take notice of the C and the F on the keyboard. We have the C and the F. If we were to flatten these, we're not left with a traditional sharp or flat or a black button. We're going from the F to the E, and then we're going from the C to the B. So because we don't have a dedicated sharp or flat for that, this C, even though it should be a flat, is going to become a B. And this right here, this F, is going to become an E. And we can see this pattern already. This E button is marked, and this E button right here is marked. So we're already starting to see a pattern. So B, E, what comes after E? We know it's bead. So we go to A, and this is where it ends. The accordion, it starts with the letter A. All the way at the bottom, we have the letter A. All the way at the top, we have the A sharp. So we basically have all of the first fundamental row memorized, the first 20 buttons memorized. We're now left with the final row, which is the counterbass row, and that's the final 20 buttons that we have to memorize. But if you memorize all of these, you'll have no problem remembering the counterbass. All it is the pattern is basically staggered. It's the exact same thing, just shifted over. So if you pay attention to the marked buttons, we have the C over here, we have the E, which is also marked over here, and we have the A flat, which is also a G sharp. So memorizing these 3 notes, the C, the E, and then the A flat G sharp, those are our marked buttons. And if we know that, all we have to do is shift them over. Directly next to the C, we have the E. So right above the C, I say above, it's going kind of towards the bellows, but in the direction of going in towards the bellows, we have the E. So this is basically staggered. So I'm going to just erase this real quick. All right, so I'm going to put this E right here. And if we're following this pattern, this is now shifted 4 this way. This C is shifted 4 this way. This A flat is shifted 4 this way. And then if we follow this pattern, this G sharp is now over here. And then finally, we are left with the G sharp, which is also the A flat. The C is under it, and the C is under it. So that's going to be a good compass point for us to memorize all the surrounding notes. So if we have the C, we already know that it's surrounded by a G and an F. Over here, again, it repeats G and F, and we're left with the bead. Where does the bead fit? So if we go in this direction, we know that there's the B, E, A, D, and then G, C, F, and it repeats. B, E, A, D. And then again, we have to remember that there are the flats. These are all flat. And then as we start to go in this direction, we have to sharpen them. So after this B, we have the F, we have the C, so we have the G, C, and F. And then again, we got the D, A. Hey, Editing Denny here again. I realized I didn't explain this well in the video, so I thought I'd backtrack and explain this. Right here, we're not really keeping up with the BEAD GCF pattern. We have the GCF here. I want to explain real quick that once we get to these outer perimeters, we're left with those sharp flat anomalies. We have the C flat and the F flat, which really is a B and an E. Right here, this is a B sharp and an E sharp, giving us a C and an F. So in case you're wondering what's going on in this little area, same thing. We have these sharp flat anomalies. So yeah, let's get back into the edit. And right after this pattern right here of the G, C, and F, we have the D. So we have this all laid out. We do have to define it with these sharps, and these sharps start right here at the F. So we have all of this shifted over, and we basically have this all figured out at this point. So now that we have that all laid out, it may not be as straightforward as just memorizing it and reaching for it and knowing it. That's where I really struggled, and sure, we can write it out and we can try and visualize it and memorize it, but that's where it gets a little tricky. But there's this one tip where it'll help you memorize it no matter what. So if we start over here at the C, we have the E right here, and then we also have the B next to it. So the smallest degree of movement within the chromatic scale is 1 degree. And if we can just remember 1 degree of a shift, that's where it makes it very easy to start to memorize this. So instead of going from the C to the E, we go from the C diagonally this way, diagonally up to the B. So we have C and then B. And what's happening on the keyboard, we're going 1 down. So any of these roots, if you go diagonally this way, you're going to get 1 semitone down from what you started with. So if we start on the E and we go diagonally this way, we go down from the E to the E flat or D sharp, which is right here. So that's going to apply all the way through, and if you can at least memorize that, you'll start to be able to memorize your counterbass. And that's basically it, 120 bass buttons. But before we go, I want to show you one thing that I think will be a surefire way of having you memorize this, even if you're in the process of internalizing it. This is the Accordion bass button stickers. This is something I developed where they're little window clings, they're little plastic stickers, reusable stickers that sit right here on your accordion. And it basically lays out the root row and the counterbass row. We already know the major, the minor, the 7, diminished. All 80 of those buttons are already memorized, and that's easy enough. But where we get into the weeds of everything is memorizing the individual notes. So this sticker clarifies all 40 notes on the root row and the counterbass row. So this is available at squeezeandthanks.com, and if you don't memorize your accordion buttons after all of this, this will do the trick. So I want to open up the comment section now to any other ideas or methods that I may have forgotten, and we'll use this as a community resource outside of the recording of this video. If there's anything that I missed, anything that you're still struggling with, any veterans on the channel that can share your own firsthand experience, that would be awesome. So speaking of community, I'd love to have you be a Patreon member. I'd like to give my Patreon members a shout out. Head on over there, you can become a member, and there's plenty of cool things to check out. I appreciate you guys sticking it through to the end, and until next time, peace.